When I first heard about this film, it was described to me by a person who hadn't seen it in years as a found footage film about people on shrooms. I was immediately interested by a film filmed by people on shrooms for obvious reasons, except it turned out not to be the case, and it sucked dramatically. But it did get me thinking about what a film would be like if it were to be filmed by people on shrooms. Like, what else could it be except entirely incoherent nonsense? Like, would the plot make sense? Would the camera even be in focus? Since I was so disappointed this film wasn't found footage, I went camping and made my own. Yup, it happened. To be entirely generous, this film was a broken piece of shit. It was genuinely hard to get through, even when I saw so much to poke fun at. And my oh my, are there ever things to poke fun at. It's one of those films where after it, I like to go onto YouTube and watch the actors promoting it, trying to keep a straight face while saying the movie is actually good and worth watching. Except when I searched for interviews about this film, all I found were white guys with dreads explaining how their shroom trips were. So obviously this film is about mushrooms, which are strong hallucinogens that no one who was involved with this film has been even within 100 meters of. They taste like shit, mate. Seriously, when I close my eyes and imagine who wrote this film, I can't shake the image of an old man wearing a sideways cap, a wallet chain, and those thick skate shoes from 2002. I can't help but imagine that he's the kind of guy that you could give a literal warm bottle of piss to at a party, and half an hour later he'd be acting like the drunkest one there. This movie has the tact and knowledge of a David Lieberhart song.
I had a friend named Gregory Lindsay. He took a lot of beer and cocaine.
So the start of this film was like a shit version of the VHS footage in The Ring. Just nonsense footage that didn't have any context or make any sense. Then it cut to two people on a plane who were having the most inane conversation I've ever heard. My sense is that the editor went back and chucked The Ring footage at the start because they realized how fucking boring this conversation that opened the film on the plane was. Seriously, it was one woman talking about how the other's father was going to ground her, and she was like, he can't tell me what to do, and then it cut to the title.
Your dad hears you've changed this much, he's gonna ground you until you marry a nice Catholic boy.
Yeah, well, maybe he can't tell me what to do here.
Sometimes films will have a hook, which is something that draws you into the film before they chuck the title out there, just to give you a little taste, and then they build up the characterization and go into the film onwards after that. This film, however, did not do that. Hey, just wondering what you're doing today, and if maybe you wanted to come camping. Come on, it'll be fun. We can do some drugs and shit. Alright, there you go. Okay, I'll see you later. So similar to the movie Reincarnation that I reviewed, where all everyone seems to want to talk about is reincarnation, Shrooms mentions nothing other than drugs. On the plane, we're going to Ireland to do shrooms. When they arrive at the terminal, haha, Troy only came to this one class at school, chemistry, because he just wanted to know how to make drugs. In the car, nature is so cool, doing shrooms in it is cooler. Here's what shrooms look like, kind of like dicks. Nature is so cool and natural. Also, the character telling everyone about shrooms was literally just a lazy Google search condensed into a character. When they get to the camping spot, he takes all of their phones and says, "Phones upset nature."
Besides, it upsets nature.
Right.
I'm lost without myself.
Wow, totally original take on the can't get reception trope. Forget having reception, we can't even call for help because that guy just took our phones for no reason. Well done, bunch of fucking geniuses. This other guy's basically Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. This other character is meant to be the jock. They even had him doing hand weights or whatever the fuck those things are. He has rings with death and coma written on them. He's on steroids, apparently, and he's just trying to fuck everyone, and as we find out, everything. I would say he was terribly written, but people like this actually exist. Still, everything he said was beyond hilarious.
Crack a motherfucker!
All there is to this other woman is that she doesn't shave. Basically, that's all the film bothered to point out about her. I love how old men can write films to shame women about arbitrary bullshit, using other female characters as vessels for their stupid opinions.
We were sleeping the whole time.
Like you're not gonna say that.
What, you think he wanted to peek at your hairy stash?
You know what, bitch? At least my tits are real.
Oh, you want to play like that, Chewbacca? Because I will rip that hair right off you.
Please stop, you fucking weird old men. This other woman, she has a period during the camping trip. We do know that about her.
Shit! No tampons.
And while the main character, I guess she might get grounded when she goes home. But other than that, I mean, we saw her drink a can of soft drink. That's all we really know about her, that she opened a can of drink once. And I guess that she has, like, shoulder-length blonde hair. Since all the characters are good and developed, and the scene is set, let's move on to Act 2. This is the part where they set up their campsite. More stupid facts about shrooms from Google search character happen. They've all done shrooms at different times and in vastly different quantities. Yeah, that's the stuff. Meanwhile, in reality, on our camping trip, shrooms taste very unlike lollies.
Mushroom sandwich. So yeah, I just finished my shroom sandwich. I hope nothing weird happens, and I hope it's just a pleasant time, and everything is okay, and nothing goes wrong.
So yeah, the film's a little ridiculous so far, but it truly parts from reality after this point. So Tara, the protagonist, ate one single mushroom with what they refer to as a black nipple on top. And let's see that again. Yum. Fucking mushrooms. It turns out to be a death cap or something, and it apparently makes your liver, lungs, and heart explode. If, however, it doesn't make your organs explode as we were led to believe, then you just writhe around a bit and then return to normal, then trip unrelentingly for days straight. You'd think that if it was known to make people explode, it may do some degree of internal damage. Nope, apparently not. Anyway, if it doesn't blow you up, it creates false memories and even gives you the ability to apparently fuck with other people's trips. Very special plot device that. I mean, mushroom. As powerful as it is, it still wouldn't be enough to make this film good. Meanwhile, on a real camping trip, I style the hair of a man on a swing with a plant. Anyway, it all starts going south when the fucking shroom expert tells a story around the campfire about some people who got killed by some cloaked guys in the forest or something like that, and they all died and there's ghosts or whatever. Meanwhile, this woman who's eaten the black nipple mushroom death cap fucking thing is writhing around in bed with a fever, having dreams of all this taking place. So that's what kicks off the whole plot. People start actually getting killed. And it's like, oh no, the legend of the forest is real because they're getting attacked. How fucking interesting. So the film gets really muddy and confusing because the woman tripping on the single death cap for days, despite probably having metabolized it for... Never mind. I should probably learn to pick my battles with films like this. She keeps having these really in-depth premonitions of the creepy cloaked ghost guys killing her friends. But super confusingly, some of them have this fuzzy blurred frame around them, so we know it's a premonition, and when they want the scene to be powerful, they just don't do the blurry frame thing that they set up. No one else set that standard for the film, they did, and even they're not willing to follow it. It's like the characters of the film aren't actually on shrooms, but the writers wrote this whole film while on shrooms. And I don't say that as a good thing, I say that because it's fucking cooked. I'm gonna ruin the film because it makes for a funnier structure for this review. So, yeah, now's your time to click out. So the big old twist at the end is that the woman who ate the death cap is the one who kills all her mates. Yeah. But she's tripping so hard that she doesn't realize any of it, but at the same time, it seems to set up that she's kind of possessed by the spirits from the story, which kind of explains why she's doing the killing, I guess, and why in her premonition she's substituted out for a cloaked guy with fangs. I guess so the viewer doesn't see that she's actually murdering them. At the same time, in the end montage where all the death scenes are reshot and we learn that she killed her mates, we see her taking considered and personal revenge against her friends. Like that jock guy killed a goat with a tire iron in the beginning, and we see her in this montage say,
How would you like that done to you?
Also, there's this weird scene where she gives him head with a goat skull before killing him. Yeah, it felt weird saying that, but that's what happened. Which implies heavily that she was doing it out of revenge and not out of being possessed. So she doesn't appear to be possessed by those creepy ghosts from the story. So are they even real, or are they just to trick the viewer into thinking it wasn't Tara doing the killing? There is a building that's featured in the story that they actually visit in the film, so that part at least is real. And then there's the fact that when the story gets up to that part, the spirits are actually fucking with Tara in the building outside of her premonition. Why would you stick your head between someone's feet? That's just stupid. So I guess there's enough evidence to suggest the ghosts the guy was talking about are real, and she heard about them in the story and then premonitioned her friends getting killed by the ghosts from the story, but she's really doing the killing for revenge because her friends are dicks and she isn't really possessed by the ghosts, but really she's doing it because she's tripping absolute balls on mushrooms, and the killing is solely a side effect of eating the mushrooms and the ghosts don't matter. Right? Or are they implying, because it seems like they are, that the ghosts of specific people who existed historically and were killed will possess you to facilitate you taking very personal revenge on your friends as a built-in side effect of eating a death cap mushroom? These ghosts will give you the power to preemptively see yourself killing them, but involving all these fancy angles and not in first person, which would give away to yourself that it's you that killed them and not them, even though they're helping you take considered revenge that actually requires your own autonomy to achieve. But the overwhelming probability of taking that mushroom is that all your organs will explode simultaneously and none of the effects of the death cap will be realized. Cool. Ooh, and I reckon I just figured out the originating idea behind this film. Two people were sitting around smoking probably rosemary or something, and one of them said, what if taking a death cap mushroom made you commit actual death on people? And voila, here we have this wonderful movie. Meanwhile, in how trips actually work land, everyone is in their tents coloring in picture books. I try to get a selfie with some birds and don't feature them in frame whatsoever. Then I find a pool floaty that resembles a giant slice of pizza and deliver it to the people in the tent who won't accept it because it's not vegan. Anyone want a pizza? It's coming. Then we argue about whether it's a pepperoni slice or a tomato on a pizza. Then I shove it into the tent anyway because it's plastic and thus is edible for vegans. So the first person to get killed is the jock. In Tara's premonition, after he drinks enough shroom tea to either permanently forget what letters mean or achieve enlightenment, he runs into the forest in his underwear and starts talking to a cow. 'Cause that's shrooms for ya. That's totally what happens when people are on shrooms. They talk to animals.
Hello, mate.
Hey, give me some of those drugs. Don't hog them all to yourself. Hey, buddy. Don't touch me, fuckwit.
I love you, Wombat.
Oh, I don't like it. Looks like a tiny gorilla.
A tiny gorilla? It doesn't care that you're vegan. Okay, so maybe they got that part right. Without a break in continuity, after talking to the cow, the jock guy sees a car in the woods. He goes over and sticks his dick in the window. No shit. I guess to get a blowjob or whatever, because he heard whenever there's a parked car in the woods, someone would give him head. Anyway, he gets his dick bitten off by Tara, I guess, but doesn't seem to recognize her even though he's looking at her, which doesn't make sense because we know she doesn't have a cloak. Then he gets killed with an axe. And then, I guess, because that's a premonition, Tara wakes up and goes to find him, and he's gone. She goes into the woods and actually finds him. She finds him talking to the cow. She comes up behind him and tells him to go to bed. He comes back to camp, tries to hit on her. He gets told to fuck off. Then he goes to bed. In the morning, his partner finds that he's given her a haircut in his sleep, and that he's missing. Eventually, they find his dead body. Meanwhile, I get shown a coloring book where the lines are moving, and then insist upon filming every shot through kaleidoscope sunglasses that I can't get onto the lens of my camera because I forget that the end of my camera doesn't have a nose to sit them on. So another fuck up is that this is one continuous premonition that we see the jock talk to the cow, and then immediately after he goes to the car and then dies. But in reality, there was a gap of like a day where he goes back to camp, goes to sleep, cuts his partner's hair, then gets lost again, and then I guess he goes to the car and gets killed. Whatever, shrooms, right? Meanwhile, someone tries to close their tent with their electronic car keys. Then someone else starts referring to a bottle of water as, quote, a bottle of wet, which soon becomes the catalyst for a practical system of references for things based on their texture and temperature only. A cup of tea being a cup of wet warm, for example. So another death happens later at the lake. Tara is laying on the ground all muddy and wet, and then her friend decides to bail on her for some reason. There's a definite reason, I just couldn't be bothered watching this more than, I had to. She's laying there in the mud and then has a fast-forwarded premonition of her friend getting killed with the edges blurred again. And then the premonitory, and then the premotion, what have I written here? Premonitione. That's what I wrote. Okay. I don't... Premonitione. And then in the now I don't even know what the word is. And then the premonition frame thing disappears, and it shows her friend getting killed by the cloak figure in real time. She doesn't react to it being Tara as it rises out of the water, and even though we see in the end montage that it's actually clearly Tara without a cloak on. And I guess, well, that was still a premonition, because we're back with Tara, who's still there on the bank of the river, hair soaking wet and covered in mud, in the same way as it was before the premonition. She gets up to find her friend, and then finds her dead body, and totally must have just blacked out and killed her while she simultaneously had the premonition about a cloaked guy killing her that went for much shorter than it would have taken to kill her. Then afterwards, she had to come back to the same place at the bank of the river and wet and muddy her hair in the exact same way she had it before she choked her friend out with an axe underwater. I'm sorry if this is confusing. It's fucking confusing me too. Meanwhile, back to the shroom trip, I filmed dirt out of focus for 10 minutes, then sand for 12 minutes, then someone amusing themselves tapping their feet on wet sand. Then I try to recreate that scene from Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, where Frodo senses the ring wraiths on the path in the Shire.
It's like... You know, in the Hobbits.
Yeah. So the next kill is the Scooby-Doo guy, and this is where any remaining sense this movie has falls to absolute fucking pieces. So Tara is walking around in a building with an axe. The cloaked guy is shown in the same shot as her, as if he's distinct from her and not a substitute in premonitions for her. Then we have a premonition-style blurred edges thing, but of Tara walking with the axe from his perspective, the fucking cloaked ghost. Then, while Tara's walking in the hallways with the axe, Scooby-Doo guy gets stabbed by a guy with a sack on his head outside of a premonition, and in the split second, he reacts to it and yells out, and his mate turns around, they're both gone. But in the end montage, we see it's Tara without a sack on her head. She was shown walking through the hallway with an axe, not a fucking knife, before this other guy could have turned his fucking head around. The answer's no. But also, while this happened, literally the shot before it, she was shown walking through the hallway with an axe, not a fucking knife. Meanwhile, I lie down and stare at a plant for a while, and then eat a stick because I thought it would be funny. which I now realize it was not. Then I turned my camera on specifically to film an entirely unremarkable tree that I thought people would think was worth looking at, which I now realize also was not. What the fuck was I even thinking? Fuck. I don't really like these kinds of films at the best of times, but there could have conceivably been another way of shooting and getting the same effect, to like genuinely trick the audience into thinking that Tara wasn't the murderer without it being unbelievable that she was, because of lazy writing and filming and editing and generally all of production. Instead, it seemed like they got to the end of the film and realized, oh, we don't have a twist, it's not a movie then, and just made one up. Seriously, it feels like the ending was tacked on as an afterthought. And this film was 3 different half-baked plot ideas put in a blender that was only partially plugged into the wall. The last guy dying really wraps this film up as a fucking colossal dumpster fire. He gets killed while Tara is in the area. He looks up and sees the cloaked thing crawling out of a tree down the trunk vertically toward him. We see Tara distance away from him as he falls down and dies. She turns around with no blood on her axe, I'll have you know, and runs over to him. But in the montage at the end, we see that Tara hits him in the head with an axe from behind, and that she didn't come down from out of a tree, so he didn't look up. And he falls on the ground with the axe in the back of his head, and the axe definitely had blood in it afterwards. Like, were you near him, or were you not? Pick one. I kind of want to start a GoFundMe to find and meet the person who is this film's biggest fan, who has all the merchandise and posters and shit. Like, let me meet him and just embrace him. So at the end of my Shrooms film is me hiding my face because the moon was about to come out. Then I shine a torch into some bushes for God knows why or for God knows how long. And then the big twist at the end of it is that I drop my fucking camera in gravel. I know it's not a good twist, but it still makes more sense than this fucking movie. Fuck cinema. Good night.
We've got a couple of ideas for the tagline of the trailer. One is, colours are different, but the same. Another one is, I can't tell what's moving or just the wind. And the third, everything is wet, but it's not. All things said tonight by people who are really tripping.